Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat, I will be offering my second annual summer poetry sermon. That is when I find a poem that sings with summer in some way and see where it takes us. Last summer, you might have been here, I found a beautiful poem about peaches. It made everyone very hungry. Tonight, I want to offer us a poem about people watching, because I think there is something about the summer that invites people watching. Maybe it's the long days, or the warmth that draws us outside onto boardwalks and beaches, patios and parks. Without even realizing it, we find ourselves observing others, noticing a gesture, following body language, and almost subconsciously constructing a narrative. As Elie Wiesel taught, God created people because God loves stories. God loves people's stories, and so do we. Denise Duhamel captures this in her poem, How It Will End. We're walking on the boardwalk, but stop when we see a lifeguard and his girlfriend fighting. We can't hear what they're saying, but it is as good as a movie. We sit on a bench to find out how it will end. I can tell by her body language, he's done something really bad. She stands at the bottom of the ramp that leads to his hut. He tries to walk halfway down to meet her, but she keeps signaling, "Don't come closer." My husband says, "Boy, he's sure in for it." And I say, he deserves whatever he's got coming to him. My husband thinks the lifeguard is cheated, but I think she's sick of him only working part-time, or maybe he forgot to put the rent in the mail. The lifeguard tries to reach out, and she holds her hand like Diana Ross when she performed "Stop in the Name of Love." The red flag that slaps against his station means strong currents. She has to just get it out of her system, my husband laughs. But I'm not laughing. I start to coach the girl to leave the no-good lifeguard. But my husband predicts she'll never leave. I'm angry at him for seeing glee in their situation, and I say, "That's your problem. You think every fight is funny. You never take her seriously." And he says, "You never even give the guy a chance, and you're always nagging. So how can he tell the real issues from the nitpicking?" And I say, "She doesn't nitpick." And he says, "Oh, really? Maybe he should start recording her tirades." And I say, "Well, maybe he should start helping out more." And he says, "Maybe she should be more supportive." And I say, "Do you mean supportive or support him?" And my husband says that he's doing the best he can, that he's a lifeguard, for God's sake. And I say that her job is much harder, that she's a waitress who works nights carrying heavy trays and is hit on all the time by creepy tourists, and he just sits there most of the days napping and listening to Power 96, and then, ooh, he gets to be the big hero blowing his whistle and running into the water to save the beach bunnies who flatter him. And my husband says, it's not as though she's Miss Innocence. And what about the way she flirts, giving free refills when her boss isn't looking, or cutting extra large pieces of pie to get bigger tips? Oh no, she wouldn't do that because she's a saint and he's the devil. And I say, I don't know why you can't just admit he's a jerk. And my husband says, I don't know why you can't admit she's a killjoy. And then out of the blue, the couple is making up. The red flag flutters, then hangs limp. She has her arms around his neck and is crying into his shoulder. He whisks her up into his hut. We look around, but no one is watching us. Narrative poetry, like this, is a genre older than the Iliad. These verses draw us in quickly. They are telling a story about people. In fact, more than one story. 3. The poet guides us from the story of the lifeguard and his girlfriend to the story of the couple watching them, and then finally to the story of our own lives. It begins innocently. A couple notices a fight between a lifeguard and his girlfriend. They don't know the details, but this doesn't stop them from playfully narrating the scene. They are both playwright and audience at a performance of their own making, with seating and stage, characters and choreography. It's entertainment. And we, as readers, well, we're complicit because we're watching the watchers. As the poem continues, the tone shifts. What starts playful and light picks up speed and turns inward. Their imagined story blurs into something personal. Unspoken resentments and long-simmering tensions rise to the surface. People watching becomes a projection, a way of avoiding what the couple can't or won't face in themselves. The intensity builds toward a breathless 255-word blaming rant, charged with assumptions and accusations. Meanwhile, the red flag flaps in the gusty wind, a literal sign of how quickly judgment inflames anger, how swiftly we pull others into our inner storm, not just feeling irritation, but radiating it. The poem ends abruptly, startling the couple and us out of the world that they have constructed. Just as quickly as it escalated, the scene resolves. The couple makes up. The fight ends. The red flag, once flapping wildly, falls limp. This image brings a vicarious relief. It's as if the tension that each of the people in the couple have fed, both on the boardwalk and within themselves, finally drops. Sometimes, when we stop gripping so tightly onto judgment, onto anger and assumption, something loosens in us too. We're left not with victory, not with resolution, but with the stillness. Then comes the quietly revealing ending. We look around, but no one is watching us. They hope no one is watching them. We're watching them. God is watching them. They're not really sure who is watching them. There's something so true and unsettling about their glancing around. We can feel it inside because we wouldn't want to be seen in that way either. The couple has caught a glimpse of themselves that they hope no one else has. Well, we have. Are we going to judge them? Or perhaps can we use this realization that they have as a mirror for ourselves? You know, sometimes we are so busy imagining other people's stories, other people's motivations, other people's faults, other people's biases, other people's misdeeds, that we forget to witness our own. And it's particularly hard now because I think that we live in a time that not only invites judgment, not only demands judgment, but rewards judgment. With clicks that say thumbs up, heart, heart, heart. Or even when you're out on the street yelling and other people honk. There is something in our society that is validating sometimes the anger that we bring against other people, even people who we've never actually spoken to directly or asked a question. Whether gossip or social media or the quiet stories that we tell ourselves, there is a very thin line between observing and distorting, between looking at someone else and not seeing ourselves. At first, when we do this kind of catty observations, it can feel witty, it can feel cathartic, it can feel silly or fun. But if we're not careful, it sharpens something inside of us. It clouds how we see others and how we see ourselves. The poet and theologian Padre Gotuma reflects that this poem seduces us into voyeurism and then turns the mirror on us. It invites challenging questions. Why do we take pleasure in reducing other people? And when we do, how are we diminishing ourselves? The lifeguard becomes a slacker, a cheater, a hero, a victim. The waitress, really the girlfriend, we don't know that she's a waitress. Look at how quickly I've absorbed that assumption. She is overworked, noble, manipulative, demanding. I think we do this because there is something very comfortable about these shortcuts. It makes the world seem more manageable. We can put people in categories. But when we flatten people in that way, we also flatten ourselves. We lose our own depth. We turn away from complexity, from contradiction, from harder but richer truths that celebrate humanity, that make people's stories something that we want to engage with. That's why we love people's stories, not because of their broad strokes, but because of their depth and dimension. So what might happen if we met others with more curiosity, with a bit more humility, with grace? What might open inside us if we don't assume something about a person because of something they posted or didn't post, a sermon they gave or didn't give, how they signed a letter, how come they didn't call? It's amazing how we can make so many assumptions about people very close and dear to us, as well as strangers. Well, I think that that is the invitation of the season we are in right now. This week marks the beginning of the 7 weeks of consolation, which are a gentle turning point after the grief that will weigh us down on Tisha B'Av. These weeks guide us toward the introspection of Elul and resetting ourselves during the high holidays when we begin again. They invite a softer kind of work, not sudden transformation, but steady attention, a more deliberate practice of compassion for others and for ourselves. This poem doesn't ask us to stop noticing, to take a seat on that bench and watch, to lose delight in our human stories. It doesn't. But what it does ask us to do is to let go of the narrations that narrow us and to begin crafting ones that stretch us open, that allow us to grow, that connect us to the people we are watching in their full humanity and ours. Now begins the slow work of softening, of loosening our grip on judgment, of choosing to see others more fully, and letting that change be seen in ourselves. We are left with these two questions. How will it end? And how will we begin again?